everyone, and welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Oh, thank God, we're back to some level of quality, and really this is kind of fitting considering this is the last week of the current Hot Dance charts rules for this chart in terms of eligibility of debuts, meaning next week the dance pop charts will officially be opened. Now, I don't expect this change to really affect much of what's currently charting. I mean, there is a possibility that Billboard could be complacent and just straight up remove a lot of the songs that only fit on dance pop as of recording this, but really I'm excited for the change. I think it's going to be really interesting next week, and hopefully the debuts make up for it, because if they're anything like this week, yeah, that's a really promising sign going into 2025. This was actually a really good week. Just a shame though that the song that probably won't budge from number one is Miles on It by Marshmello and Kane Brown, considering that the radio and streaming are somehow still on board with this. Seriously, just let go of this damn song. It's been at number one way too long, and there are quite frankly way better songs beneath it that deserve that run instead of this. But as expected, Apple by Charli XCX rebounded to number two, and this wasn't really all that surprising. It still got a decent amount of radio, and streaming rebounded once the Christmas rush died off, and really it hit the Hot 100 on its 20th week, so I don't expect it to really stick around that much longer once radio throws us out. But for the time being, it's actually doing a lot better than I expected, so I'll give it that at least. I mean, at least it has streaming compared to Forever Young by David Guetta, Alphaville, and Ava Max at number three, which is here entirely because of radio support, considering it's surging across the board there. But given that there's absolutely no streaming for this one and sales are only decent, I don't expect it to get much higher, thank Christ. But what's more telling is just how close the rest of the songs are beneath it, starting with 360 by Charli XCX actually rebounding considerably at number four, as it's actually still got radio and streaming is still decent enough, although I don't see this rebounding anytime soon. It's at least sticking around decently well, I can't complain. Certainly better than Guess by Charli XCX featuring Billie Eilish at number five, which is stalled out completely on streaming, and given that's all it's got, I don't expect this to last much longer, and honestly it had a great run. I'm really happy that this actually hit number one, unlike a lot of other songs from this album. But where the closeness is more in line is with The Days Notion remix by Crystal up to number six, where this is somehow against all odds hit the bubbling under of the Hot 100, and at the rate it's going on streaming where it's actually doing better than a lot of the songs above it, I can see this actually making a run for the Hot 100, and that just feels weird to me. Although seriously, Billboard, why did you create the original track instead of the remix? You had a perfectly fine case of this with the last few weeks. It was created under the Notion remix. Why are you doing this? Hell, I was also surprised by the big rebound of Move by Adam Portnoy featuring Malachi up to number seven, where it looks like the streaming is still pretty damn strong on this one, and given the year-end countdowns, I'm not exactly surprised that this finally got a bit of a rebound. I don't expect it to last much longer though. But although that big jump is probably because of the complete collapse of Sao Paulo by The Weeknd and Anita at number 8, where the streaming is just falling at a record pace, and given that radio is done with this, I don't expect it to last much longer, or at least until Hurry Up Till Tomorrow actually gets released. But thanks to a certain Christmas song leaving the top 10 as expected, yep, Sympathy is a Knife by Charli XCX featuring Ariana Grande is up to number 9, and really with this one I don't expect it to last that long, as although it has got okay streaming, that's pretty much all it's got. But on a much better note, there's the last song in the top 10 at number 10 that quite frankly I did not expect would ever get up this high, and I've been rooting for since it's come out. Yeah, that's Under Your Spell by Snow Strippers at number 10. Now look, I don't expect this to stick that much longer, considering it's only here because of Holiday Road exiting the top 10, and it really was the only song that had any chance of hitting the top 10 after that. But really the streaming is enough to keep this up, and I'm just thrilled that Snow Strippers have actually gotten a top 10 hit with a genuinely great song too. It's really grown on me this past few months. And on the topic of good news, our falls and fall-offs, where we didn't lose much that was really all that good to begin with. Outside of the majority of those god-awful debuts from last week exiting, we also saw Home Sweet Home by G-Dragon featuring Taeyang and Daesung, and Void by ISQ. Probably the only one that's slightly passable there, but even with that, I'm not exactly complaining that it's gone. It's going to miss the year-end list. Good riddance. Sadly, our falls look to be songs that I genuinely really like, although some of them were not all that surprising, like Passaporte by Raul Alejandro and Mr. Nice Guy at 30, and Swimming by Flawed Mango is just plummeting down to 49, as the latter is probably going to miss the year-end list. That's unfortunate. It's a great song. Hell, I'd also factor in the really turbulent runs of Dice and Roll by Odotari at 44 and The Machine by Reed Wonder and Aurora Olivas at 46 in there with them, and even if they're not exactly great songs, they're at least passable. It's a little bit of a shame to see them underperform. Finally, that leaves the outlier Holiday Road by Kesha, which actually somehow survived another week down to 34, and it did absolutely collapse, but considering the sound of this song isn't really something that's common around the holidays and it doesn't even reference Christmas in the lyrics, I'm not exactly surprised that people are still listening to it outside of the season, and while I expect it to be gone next week, it is doing a lot better than I expected. But on the topic of things I was pleasantly surprised by, our comebacks outside of Stars Will Align by Kygo and Imagine Dragons at 40 are all genuinely really good songs. Kisses by Bless and Cameron Watson featuring BB Close actually rebounded at 41. Seriously, what happened with that big fall off last week? That makes no sense to me. Stephanie by Clooney, Young MA and Int Raw actually returned at 48 because this is a song that I've heard many times at festivals. It's actually gotten a lot of organic momentum and that's genuinely really surprising to me. And even She's Gone Dance On by Disclosure actually managed to rebound at 50, and really this feels like a bottom filler for this chart, but honestly I'm just amazed that this is still sticking around at all. But hey, it's already made the year-end list. Why not add more weeks to it? An insane run that I don't think anyone expected to do as well as it did. Hell, I was also surprised at the songs that jumped this week because a lot of them were really good too. I mean, the worst of them is probably Dirty Cash Money Talks by Porter and the Adventures of Stevie V into the top 20 at 20, and honestly that song's still pretty solid. But if it's going to take up Some Days by Sony Federa, Jazzy and DOD at 25, which I'm still amazed that that song's sticking around so long after it charted in the UK, as well as both Let's Go Back by Jungle at 38 and Lost by Rascal It's Murph at Twin Diplomacy featuring Jack August at 37 as it hits a new peak and is somehow still here. Yeah, I'm not complaining. These are all genuinely excellent songs, and really I'm not complaining at all about them sticking around. And man, the great news keeps coming with our debuts because two of these I'm at least really excited to talk about, starting off with number 47, Never Walk Alone by Blondish and Stevie Appleton. Put me back together every time I look into your eyes. I'm shocked it's taken this long for Blondish to chart for a second time on this chart. I mean, I covered her really admittedly not very great remix of Sorry by Madonna back in 2023, and while I didn't really care for it, I had the feeling that she was going to stick around, and I was mostly proven right. I mean, she actually managed to score a big remix of Fortnite by Taylor Swift and Post Malone, and even if I really do not like the original track, I was genuinely surprised how much that remix worked for me. So to see her chart now with a collaboration with Stevie Appleton, who also charted on a Tiesto collaboration back in 2020, yeah, I was excited for this, and yeah, this is great. I mean, more than anything, the vibe I get out of this reminds me a lot of Jamiroquai of all people, right down to those Sonny Simpson, the really gorgeous atmosphere that really does feel breezy as hell, especially with the focus on guitar and some bass that's admittedly a bit too loud for my liking. You could have pushed it a little bit further back in the mix, but in general, I really enjoyed the sound of this track quite a bit, and man, this vibe has been missed in 2025. I really like the hook, the production feels smooth and very relaxing, Stevie Appleton sounds absolutely great and really fits into the Love Struck lyrics here. It's just one of those tracks that I just really enjoy, and the fact it came out in August and is only charting now, yeah, that might be a sign that might actually stick around, especially with a weaker chart moving forward. I mean, it's just a ton of fun, and considering my low standards that I held Blondish at one point, I would like to apologize because the material that she's been releasing recently, yeah, it's great, and this is no exception. Definitely worth checking out. Number 45, It Feels So Good by Matt Sassari and HUGEL featuring Sonique. Topic of long overdue appearances, it feels weird that this is the first time that Matt Sassari has actually charted on the main hot dance charts, especially with a lot of his remixes actually blowing up in a similar way to Porter, and considering how quick he was able to cross over, it feels weird that Matt Sassari is only charting now. But thanks to HUGEL's massive rise in popularity, their collaboration that samples and remixes the track of the same name by Sonique was actually able to chart even despite being released in November, and yeah, I get the appeal of this one quite a bit. It's really good too. Granted, a lot of that comes from from the original being one of the best sunny pop EDM tracks of the 1990s, it's a track that's held up ridiculously well for me over the years. You can argue it's an EDM classic at this point, and I definitely would not disagree with you there, and it keeps the elements of the original track that I found the best parts of it, mainly the soulful vocals of Sonique that absolutely sound fantastic in this remix. They're given a lot more refinement and really do sound pretty as all hell. Honestly enough to distract from the fact that this track is kind of lacking a bit of melody in this remix. It does feel a bit noticeable. Yes, the groove is really good and that bass line is legitimate as all hell. I really enjoyed it, but honestly besides that, it does feel a bit empty sounding, and it kind of does feel like it's relying a lot on the vocals to really carry any sort of melody, and it does make this track a little bit draining to listen to at certain points. But still, given how much I hold the original in such high regards, the fact that this doesn't even ruin it all that much for me and actually turns out pretty damn solid, yeah, that's kind of a good sign. I mean, it's not better than the original. Again, it's an EDM classic, but really not much things are, and this is a really nice modern contextualization. I really enjoyed this track. Definitely worth checking out. And finally, number 22, MONTAGEM LUNAR DIAMANTE by DJ DYLANFK and Weshson. But just our goddamn luck, we end with another Brazilian Phonk song with a lead artist that has 3 versions of the same song in the top 5. Again, I feel like I'm saying this every single week. We can move on from this. Now, I'll give them credit. This is not actually all that bad. I actually found this pretty decent, mainly down to the fact that the instrumentation does not go for the clipping sound that you expect out of Brazilian Phonk, but is more focused on being smothered out by the melodies rather than having the percussion dominate, and that's more on the side of this scene that I can actually tolerate. And I'll give them credit. The melody does remind me a lot of Fortet. It is very pretty, and it would work if the mixing was a lot better, but unfortunately the really consistently bad mixing of this genre does drag this one down for me. And with the vocal chops not even being all that good, yeah, I can't say this is all that good either. And once again, I'm left with the feeling that this should not be charting, and the scene should not be enabled to succeed. It's another case of a non-Brazilian artist taking the sound and style of a genre that's been popular in Brazil for a while now and really important to their culture, and turning it into the sort of thing that blows up exclusively for TikTok and really has no other purpose besides that, and that in general just feels really gross to me. So while this is not bad, I can at least see the appeal of this a lot more than the other Brazilian Phonk songs that are charting right now. Yeah, a song like this shouldn't really succeed, and I'm not really going to support it, so yeah, I would skip this one. And with that, yeah, it's the worst of the week. Not even particularly close either. With best, it's going to Never Walk Alone by Blondish and Stevie Appleton. I really like that track, and I really hope it sticks around. It was a really big surprise for me, but in general, this was actually a really good week, and a good way to end off the current status of this chart, so yeah, nice send-off there. Next week, well, there's no guarantee that the dance pop pivot is going to really impact the charts that much, and really it's all down to whether Billboard decides to remove said dance pop songs from the actual hot dance charts. I can only hope it makes the charts at least a little bit more interesting. But yeah, that's all for this episode of Analysis of Dance. See you next time.